Jake Gibbs wanted to get this kid, and that little monkey gets loose, doesn't he?
Remember that controversy? Yeah, when people talk about Howard Cosell, odds are the first thing that comes to mind is that 1983 game to kick off the Monday Night Football season in a rematch of the NFC Championship between Dallas and Washington. The little monkey comment has lived in infamy as one of the most controversial moments in the history of Monday Night Football. Some people thought nothing of it, while others thought that Cosell was being racist, referring to a black man as a little monkey. In the end, while I completely get the controversy here, I'm on the side of Cosell on this one. We have clips of Cosell referring to other athletes, including white ones, as monkeys, and considering that backdrop and that history of using the phrase in many non-racial connotations, I'm inclined to believe that Cosell was not even thinking for 1 second about race when he spoke of Alvin Garrett that way. Howard Cosell was no stranger to controversy and polarizing people during his time on Monday Night Football, and Week 1 of the 1983 season was a prime, infamous example of that. But while you probably know about that controversy because it's been so well documented, you probably don't know about the one that took place the following week that, in my opinion, was dumber and stupider and showed the pompousness and arrogance of Cosell at his absolute worst. Say what you want about Cosell, but whether you loved him or hated him, you had an opinion of the guy. No one felt indifferent about him. And 1 week later, during Week 2 of that 1983 season, the haters were feasting when Cosell had a desire to be right at all costs and come out on top, even if it meant destroying his relationship and journalistic integrity in the process. Because when you think of the pregame meetings and interviews between the broadcast team and the coaches, you think of the two sides sitting down in a room for a couple of minutes, the announcers asking questions about certain players and certain things that have happened, and the coaches answering them in a loose, relaxed, super friendly environment. I've sat in on these meetings before, and I've conducted plenty of them during my broadcasting days, and they're a critical part of your preparation for a game. Nothing bad should ever happen at one of these meetings, and if it does, it means that someone went off the rails and was a psycho. And sure enough, during Week 2 of the 1983 season, prior to a game between the San Diego Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs, that's exactly what happened with this man right here, Howard Cosell, and Chiefs head coach John Mackovic, in a story that deserves a deep dive more than 4 decades later. Because this is the story behind what might just be, considering the circumstances, the dumbest moment in Monday Night Football history, and the dumbest moment in Howard Cosell's legendary but highly controversial broadcasting career. Make sure you hit that like button down below, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel, because we post every single day on here about the weird and the wacky history of the NFL with stories like this one that you may not have heard of before. So if you like that sort of stuff, then this is definitely the place for you. Thanks in advance for liking and subscribing, and for helping us grow this community. And with that in mind, let's talk about the tension between the Chiefs and Howard Cosell that could rival that of the United States and the Soviet Union during the Cold War. Before I talk about the actual incident in question and just what exactly went down in the pregame meeting, because I promise you, whatever you're thinking happened and whatever you're thinking triggered that or sparked that, it's even more absurd than that. We need some context to understand the importance of the game at hand, as well as how this game was going, working backwards to some extent on this one. It's September 12th, 1983. It's Week 2 of a brand new NFL season, and we've got an AFC West game under the lights in prime time on Monday Night Football between the San Diego Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs over at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. This game was a big deal for a few reasons. Number one, Monday Night Football, especially back when that was the only national game, always amplified things. For the Chiefs, this was their only game in front of a national television audience all season, as their other 15 games would be on Sunday in regional windows. So this was your one chance to make a great impression. Number 2, this was a divisional rivalry, which could be important down the stretch for tiebreakers. And number 3, the AFC West was looking super competitive early on, as if the Chiefs lost this game, then all 5 teams would have a win just 2 weeks into the season. Win this game and start the season 2-0, and you put yourself in a very good position going forward. Unfortunately for the Chiefs, they did not do that, as the Chargers won the game by a final score of 17-14. The 1983 season had some absolutely incredible games on Monday Night Football, from the Week 1 game between Dallas and Washington, to the Week 7 shootout between Green Bay and Washington that ended 48-47, to the Week 8 shootout between Dallas and the Los Angeles Raiders that ended 40-38, to the Week 9 battle between Washington and San Diego that ended with Mark Mosley hitting the game-winning field goal. And this game was no exception, as the Chargers, despite trailing 14-10 with 3 minutes left and needing to drive 80 yards down the field to avoid the dreaded 0-2 start, drove down the field in 80 seconds, with Dan Fouts finding Wes Chandler in the end zone past the 2-minute warning to give the Chargers the go-ahead and game-winning score. It was one of those games that, just looking at the box score and looking at the stats, you wouldn't expect it to be that close. San Diego had 27 first downs compared to 13 for Kansas City, more than doubling them in that department. The Chargers had 443 yards of offense compared to 267 for the Chiefs, while outgaining the Chiefs a whopping 192-45 in rushing yards. But even if the stat sheet seemed to be lopsided, the game itself was not, and was a fun affair between two teams that, while we didn't know it at the time, wouldn't have a lot of bright spots during that 1983 season, as both teams finished the year 6-10. Odd fact about that game: the guy who caught the most passes for the Chiefs was tight end Willie Scott, who had 7 catches for 32 yards after having 2 catches the previous week alongside another tight end, Ed Beckman. Now you might be wondering, why the heck did I bring that stat up about the tight ends for the Chiefs? Seems like a random thing to just pull out. Well, the Chiefs had 3 tight ends on their roster, as they had the veteran Ed Beckman, who didn't record a single catch the year before and hadn't recorded a catch since 1979, Willie Scott, their first-round pick from the 1981 NFL Draft, who was off to a super slow start to his career, having just 13 catches in his first 2 seasons, and Ron Wetzel, their rookie from Arizona State that they drafted in the 4th round. Not exactly the strongest unit on the team, nor was it anywhere close to one of the top tight end rooms in football. However, there were some questions after that first game, considering the even production between Beckman and Scott, with each of them having 2 catches, about who the number 1 option was. Who's the go-to guy for this game right here that you've been watching? And so, Howard Cosell asked head coach John Mackovic what the plan was down by the goal line. Who comes into the game in those packages as you're close to the end zone? To which Mackovic replied by saying, whoever. In other words, whoever was in the game at the time would be the man who would stay in down by the goal line. Mackovic wasn't going to change his tight ends and swap guys in and out based on where they were on the field. He was just going to ride the hot hand and go with the personnel out there. He didn't want to deal with any potential illegal substitutions. If Beckman was on the field, then Beckman would stay out there down by the goal line. If Scott was on the field, then Scott would stay there down by the goal line. And so far, this seems like a pretty normal pregame meeting. Cosell asked a very good question that could definitely be integrated into the broadcast if the Chiefs got down there. And Mackovic gave a good response by explaining what his strategy was in that situation. And in a normal world, that'd be the end of that, and we'd move on to the next question, and the interview would continue. Except, this wasn't a normal world. This was Howard Cosell's world. And remember, Mackovic had never spoken with Cosell before. Mackovic became the head coach of the Chiefs in 1983, replacing Marv Levy after the 1982 season. So Makovic had never done one of these production meetings before. It's not as if the two had a built-in friendship or relationship with each other. While they definitely knew of each other, as you'd have to be living under a rock to not know who Howard Cosell was, they were seeing each other for basically the first time. So with all of that in mind, after Makovic said whoever, Cosell responded not by saying his next question, but rather by saying whomever. Yep, Howard Cosell was more interested in correcting Makovic's grammar than he was on anything else. He was more interested in showing off his knowledge and prowess with the English language and decided to teach Makovic a lesson about how to be grammatically correct. This led to the two sides going back and forth, with Makovic insisting that whoever was an appropriate answer, while Cosell was insisting that Makovic was wrong and that it was whomever. As Makovic then said, my implied sentence was, whoever is in the game. Thus, whoever is the subject. Oh, I forgot to mention during all this, Makovic wasn't your average football coach. He was super smart. The man studied for a year at Oxford, which is one of the most prestigious universities in the world. And when he graduated from Wake Forest, he received a degree in languages. In other words, this wasn't one of those guys who only knew about football and flunked out of academia and couldn't string together 3 words coherently. Say what you want about Makovic as a coach, as he had some bizarre tactics, one of which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. But the man was very clearly well-educated and knew what he was talking about, especially when it came to language. Correcting his grammar of all people, almost like you're correcting your friend who is a classically trained musician about music theory when your knowledge of music theory is skimming a Wikipedia article one time half asleep, seems like a really stupid and ill-advised thing to do. Cosell was still insistent that he was right and that Makovic was wrong, so the two men continued to go at it about whether it was whoever or whomever. Apparently at one point, Frank Gifford, who was in the room as Cosell's broadcasting partner, was loving this and was basically eating popcorn, encouraging Makovic to keep going, saying, no, John, you've got him on the ropes. Don't back off now. Apparently, after this, Makovic just shrugged his shoulders and walked away. So I don't think anything else got done during this pregame production interview because of the grammar. But what's fascinating about this story is, quite simply, who cares? Seriously, who cares? If it was whomever and not whoever, and John Makovic said this in a post-game press conference and said the wrong thing, I wouldn't care. None of us would care. I wouldn't be doing a video about it. I wouldn't even notice. I just go about my day and have that be that. If that situation came up during a game, Cosell could just paraphrase what Makovic told him and say whichever version he thought was right. If you want to know what making a mountain out of a molehill looks like, this is that to a T. If you want to know, unironically, what it means to be shallow and pedantic, a la that one Family Guy scene, this is that moment. It is genuinely impressive how insane and polarizing Howard Cosell could be at times. And no better moment sums that up than this incident with John Makovic. So, is it whoever? Is it whomever? Oh no, he's on third, and I don't care. Shortstop. Either way, there are certain things that you just have to know how to let go of and when to let go. Pressing a coach during an interview because you're not satisfied with his answer, because it's contradictory and goes against what he's done before, or because it lacks depth, or because he gave that answer before and nothing's changed since then, go for it. Do your job as a reporter and ask those questions and press him. But pressing a coach during an interview because of this, potentially losing out on vital insight and intel and relationships because you're so hung up on this completely trivial and pointless detail that you're willing to forego the main purpose of your job, which is to get information to educate the viewers on what's happening, just to prove a point and prove that you're right about one word? One letter? Just insane. Absolutely insane. Because on this September day in 1983, whether it was whoever or whomever, this situation should have just been a giant whatever. Check out our live streaming schedule for the next few days. We're live every single day on this channel, whether we're covering a sporting event or playing GeoGuessr or just taking your requests. So make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single time that we go live and so that you can join this community. Also, thanks to all our members and our Patreon supporters who get exclusive perks like their name at the end of each video, members-only Q&A streams, and cool emojis to use on videos and during streams. See how you can join this community and become a member or a Patreon member by clicking the link in the description below.